Hello and welcome to Game Shamus. Today we are investigating long-term memory. In long-term memory there are two systems. One is the explicit memory, or declarative memory, and two, there's the implicit memory, or the procedural memory. The explicit memory is memory of facts and experiences that one can consciously know or declare.
I ever tell you about the time Keith and I made fireworks?
There are two types of explicit memory. Semantic memory, which is for learning knowledge about the world, and episodic memory for episodes/events that have happened to you. Autobiographical memory that is personally relevant. So an example of autobiographical memory, your birthday.
Happy birthday, pal. I can't believe you're already 10. I'm so proud of you.
Or your name. Explicit or declarative memory with conscious recall is processed in the hippocampus. These include facts of general knowledge. I know that 2 + 2 = 4. And the other is personally experienced events. When you ride your bicycle, or you remember that you rode a bicycle. This is an example of explicit memory. Now, implicit memory, on the other hand, is also known as procedural memory, is without conscious recall. So it's processed in part by the cerebellum. These involve skills in motor and cognition, so classical and operant conditioning effects. One example of when I hold up a muffin and you start to drool. You've been conditioned to do this because you know that muffins taste delicious, and so naturally, whenever I hold up a muffin, you're going to drool. You can also think of Pavlov's dog. 3 types of memory systems. There's sensory, working, and long-term. The sensory memory system has 3 subsystems: echoic, iconic, and haptic. The echoic subsystem processes auditory stimuli. The capacity is high. The duration, however, that we can process is for 3 to 4 seconds. Iconic, the subsystem of the sensory system, we process visual stimuli. So iconic, visual stimuli. Think of Mario. He's iconic. When I process that visually, I know what that is. This capacity is high, and it only lasts for about 0.5 seconds. The haptic subsystem processes touch stimuli. It also has a high capacity, and the duration is about 1 second. Then there is the working memory system. The working memory system has 4 subsystems. The first subsystem of working memory is the central executive, phonological loop, visuospatial sketchpad, and episodic buffer. Involves processing. There's the central executive system. This is different from the phonological loop, the visuospatial sketchpad, and the episodic buffer in that it acts as basically the control system. Or imagine the headquarters of Nintendo, where all of the orders are taken out, but it is where orders are executed. You think about Nintendo and you think about its warehouses and its direction. The central executive system gives orders to the phonological loop, the visuospatial sketchpad, and the episodic buffer. Without it, they're nothing. So the phonological loop, visuospatial sketchpad, and episodic buffer all function as warehouses because they store information, just as Nintendo warehouses store Nintendo games. Phonological loop processes auditory information, it stores auditory information, and this goes to 7 ± 2 chunks. This is in reference to the magic number 7. So the duration for this is about 15 to 30 seconds. The visuospatial sketchpad stores visual/spatial information, and the capacity for this is about 5 chunks. The duration for this is also 15 to 30 seconds. The episodic buffer, last of all, stores multidimensional information, and the capacity is unknown. The episodic buffer's duration is 15 to 30 seconds. Then there is a long-term memory system. Third, there is the long-term memory system. The long-term system processes 3 subsystems, or contains 3 subsystems. These are semantic, which is general knowledge, and the capacity for this is infinite, along with the duration of recalling. The episodic subsystem stores events, which the capacity is infinite and the duration is infinite. Last of all, there's the procedural subsystem, which stores skills and habits in knowledge. Capacity for this is infinite, and the duration is infinite in its recall. New or unusual information, encoding long-term memory. However, you can think about when you're trying to remember a password on a game, requires attention and effort. For automatic processing, we process a huge amount of information effortlessly. Examples of automatic processing are space, time, and 3, frequency. Space, when you're reading a textbook, you automatically encode a place or a picture on a page. Time, we unintentionally note events that take place in a day. And 3, frequency, you effortlessly keep track of things that happen to you. Effortful processing. This requires attention and a conscious effort. You use this when you play a game like Punch-Out. Example of this is rehearsal, such as playing a guitar, or rehearsal, knowing the patterns of the fighter. It's a conscious repetition of information. It serves 2 purposes. One is to maintain it in consciousness in working memory. And the second purpose is to encode it in storage for long-term memory. Encoding in long-term memory. So there is a variety of automatic and effortful processes that can influence encoding in long-term memory. We process levels of processing / depth processing approach. This is proposed by Craig and Lockhart in 1972. Basically, levels of processing, depth of processing approach is deep, meaningful information processing that leads to permanent retention, and then shallow sensory processing. Encoding in long-term memory. Levels of processing. The memory for the general material is Craig and Tulving of 1975. Participants were 3 times more likely to recall words when they had processed a meaningful versus physical appearance. For an example, if your name came on the screen, meaning over physical, you would be more likely to recall this if it had meaning to you rather than the physical appearance. Or a game. A game could could physically show up on the screen, but if a game shows up that brings you back nostalgia, such as Banjo and Kazooie, you're going to have a deeper process. If you see a game that's really cool, you're likely to remember it better than a game that you think is lame. Why does deeper processing enhance encoding? So it makes memory more distinctive, results in less interference from other memories. Elaboration increases connection with other content, results in more time processing material and more opportunities for retrieval used at a later time. Processing global characteristics of the face led to enhanced encoding over processing superficial characteristics. Self-reference effect. A way we enhance encoding through relating the materials to one's personal experience.